Good morning, everyone, and happy Sunday. I wanted to make this video today because we have a very important week, this upcoming week. Lots of events going on, a lot of key data coming out. So I just wanted to make this video to prepare you guys for the week ahead, okay? I'm not going to discuss technicals much on individuals. I'll talk about SPY and the Qs, but primarily I want to focus on the data that's coming out, okay? So let's start with Nvidia earnings. All right, I'm going to just make you guys a list here. We have Nvidia earnings on Wednesday. Okay. Now Nvidia is let me do a one. Okay, one. Number one most important thing this week for equity markets is Nvidia earnings. Okay, I'm going to rank this. Nvidia earnings Wednesday. Okay. Now they are expecting nearly 100% revenue and EPS growth, okay, since last year, okay? Now, the key will not be the actual earnings. Yeah, of course, it's important. Will they beat or will they miss? But the key will be guidance, okay? Another thing that we will be watching for on Nvidia earnings will be data center demand. Is it keeping up? Okay, CapEx, and of course, AI spending. Now, these are all things that will be on focus Wednesday after hours for Nvidia earnings. This is the single most important event for equity markets this week, especially semis. All right, semis, chips, AI, all of that information, right, is going to depend on Nvidia earnings. AMD, everything's going to move based on what happens with Nvidia. Number two, now I would actually put Jackson Hole as number two. Okay, Jackson Hole Symposium. This is not an order. This is on Thursday and Friday. I have another data point on Wednesday that I'll put, but this is the second most important thing for equity markets this week. So the Jackson Hole Symposium is on Thursday and Friday, okay? And this is a conference. I'll just write this down for you guys. This is a conference for the Fed and central bankers, okay, to discuss monetary policy and interest rate outlook. Okay, very simple. So they do this once a year, and the Fed and central bankers get together to discuss monetary policy and interest rate outlook. This will 1,000% move the market. All right, Warsh, who is the new Fed chair, is speaking at 10 a.m. on Friday. All right, markets will move. Be very careful being in a trade 10 a.m. on Friday, and his tone, whether he's hawkish, dovish, is going to move markets depending on what they say at this conference. All right, Thursday and Friday will be very important as well for the market. Number three, so going back to Wednesday, okay, we have PCE inflation data. All right, on Wednesday. All right, let me put this. This is Thursday and Friday. PC inflation data is on Wednesday. However, I ranked it as third most important, not second most important. Okay. Now, this is important because it is the Fed's preferred inflation metric. All right. Let's say if we have a hot PCE, this could push yields higher, which can, all right, or we don't even have to say which can. All right, if we have hot PCE, it could push yields higher, which creates pressure on equities. If we have a cool PCE reading, then this can push yields lower, which provides relief on equities. Okay, so that's the third most important thing this week. The fourth most important thing will be simply monitoring Treasury yields. Okay, why is that important? Because the 10-year and 30-year yields, both in Japan and the US, are seeing 20 to 30-year highs. All right, this is pressuring equities alone. And even though Besson said, oh, we'll do bond buybacks for older bonds, it's not really, it didn't do much. Okay, and I'll show you guys those charts in a minute, and that's something you guys should be watching this week as well, okay? We need to be watching the 10-year and 30-year yields. We need to be watching number 5. I'm not going to say this is the 5th most important, so let me do number 6 is VIX, right? We just need to be monitoring VIX this week. It's at very low levels, which means that I wouldn't be surprised if we had some big move happen either this week or next week, okay? So I'm going to put VIX as number 6, and number 5, I'm going to put oil and Iran escalation, right? So there's already signs of escalation in Iran, right? You know, Trump has said, this is our territory now. You know, I own this Strait of Hormuz, okay? So let's see what happens to that. Oil is spiking, okay? Yields are spiking. This is putting some pressure on equities. Obviously, SPY has not dropped much. We went from 780 to 762, so not a very big move yet. However, if escalation continues, oil continues rising, Treasury yields continue rising, and we get, let's say we get a hot PCE rating, Nvidia guidance is weak, then this could send markets into turmoil, okay? Otherwise, if Nvidia improves on their guidance, and let's say Warsh is dovish and he's saying, no, maybe we won't need to hike, and maybe we get a cool PCE rating, then markets can see some relief and maybe potentially see higher, all right? So a lot is going to depend on what happens this week. This week is huge for equity markets, and that's why I made a special video just talking about it, all right? Now I'm going to show you some things. Take a screenshot of this so you guys have this for the upcoming week, right? I'll give you 1 second to do that. So Nvidia earnings, Jackson Hole Symposium, PCE inflation data, Treasury yields, oil and Iran escalation, and VIX. Now I want to show you guys the charts, all right? Now I'm really not going to focus too much on charts today because I just wanted to get through the important things. So SPY is at 760, right? 760 was the previous all-time high. If we break below 760, I don't have anything to 730, right? 730 is the next big demand, and we could see easily a $30 drop if we lose that 760, okay? Now, other than equity charts, let me pull up QQQ and look at that real quick. Okay, so QQQ, 734, all right? That's the big level. If we're going to push into all-time highs, we would have to reclaim this 734. Otherwise, we can just continue selling, right? Qs haven't even hit all-time highs. SPY already did, okay? But SPY and QQ, I want to look at the yields, right? So let me show you guys 10-year yields. There you go. 10-year yields are spiking, right? If you are a trend line trader, which I'm not really on yields at least, but if you were a trend line trader on yields, you could say, yeah, well, it looks like the 10-year yield is breaking out, right? Boom, boom, boom. Looks like 10-year yields are breaking out. And if you look at expanded time frames, you'll see yields are spiking, right? Let's look at 30-year yields. 30-year yields are also spiking, 5.24, all right? This chart's not the best. This is TradingView data. 2021 is the earliest they have. I don't know why. But let's look at oil, all right? CL, crude oil futures. All right, oil is also bouncing. We bounced off of 65. Right, bounced off of 65, and we're all the way back into 86. So if oil spikes, here we can draw another trend line. Sure, why not? If oil spikes and we break this, let's say we break this trend line here, and we push into 100 plus, then I think market sells. Right, market sells. I gave you guys the list. Right, there's really two outcomes this week. Either, I mean, and this could go like two ways. Right, Nvidia could crush earnings and market bounces a little bit, but then on Thursday and Friday, Warsh comes out and has a hawkish tone, right? Or maybe Nvidia could crush earnings, but PCE is hot. Okay, so it's not like everything has to go one way or the other, but just so you guys know, there's a lot of data that could potentially move markets this week. So that's what I want you guys to focus on. Also VIX, let me show you that chart. So VIX is at lows for the year, right? VIX is at 15. If you look at when we started 2026, it was also at 15, okay? So VIX is now, basically the market is saying volatility is at the lowest that it's been for the entire year, right? Does that make sense? Maybe, let's see. It depends what happens with the events this week, okay? Bull case scenario, Nvidia crushes earnings. PCE comes in cooler than expected. Warsh comes out and doesn't have a hawkish tone, right? He comes out dovish and he says maybe we won't need to hike rates. Treasury yields get pushed lower, and let's say there's some sort of deal between Iran and the U.S., right? That could send SPY to 800. Okay, now the likelihood of that is, I would say, low at this point, but I could see Nvidia beating earnings, and then Warsh coming out. It really depends on what happens with PCE, but I think the oil and treasury yields are what's going to keep markets from ripping, right? Oil moving higher and yields moving into highs, right? 20, 30-year highs is what's going to prevent markets from squeezing into all-time highs. But this week is going to be just very, very key for everything, okay? So make sure you guys have this all written down. You're prepared. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, major days for the market. Monday and Tuesday should be pretty chill. We can put on our normal size, okay? And then after, even Wednesday, right? Wednesday we can put on normal size. And then I would say Thursday and Friday is when we should start sizing down, all right? Because the volatility could be insane. Whether it's upside or downside, it's going to depend on Nvidia, PCE, and that Jackson Hole symposium, as well as any conflict between Iran and the US. All right. So I hope this helps you guys. Hope you guys have a nice rest of your weekend. I'll see you on live tomorrow.